Hello, I'm Marilyn Hemingway, and welcome to A Gathering Place. I said, I'm stepping back because we have young voices who want to be heard and they're moving on something.
Branding is really important to you and your business.
Even a basic type of technology, you learn it all.
And people are
Good question. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to A Gathering Place, hosted by the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. And I am Marilyn Hemingway, your hostess for today. And it's exciting to have everyone join us and be with us today. Our special guest today, and I'm really looking forward to this, is Miss Twanja Windley. And she wrote a book, Another Level. And you may have seen it in our graphics, how changing your mindset changes your circumstances. And I think I can relate to this. And I say I think because that's why we brought her on, so we could ask her questions and find out why she wrote this book and her journey that led her to this book. So let's bring on our special guest, Miss Twanja Windley. How are you doing today?
Hi, Miss Marilyn. Thank you so very much for having me on. I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing really good.
Wonderful.
How about yourself?
I'm glad to hear that. I'm doing good. Thank you very much. I'm ready for this.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I think I can relate in some ways, but as I told you, and I tell all of my guests, this is a conversation.
Yes.
This is for us to sit and have a conversation and not only learn about each other, but what we can do and what we are doing out here to help our community, because we can get into the historical reasons and also the current reasons why our community needs some healing and needs to move forward. And that's why I bring on guests such as yourself, because you took the time to write a book and to be part of the solution, I'm assuming, rather than the brokenness. And,
That's right.
I just love this. I love it. And it's a beautiful cover, by the way. A beautiful cover. Another level, how changing your mindset changes your circumstances. So first question is, tell us about the book. What is the book about?
Well, first, before I get into that part, let me just add on to something that you said. You were saying how, bringing the resources back or just coming back into the community. And I think that that's very important because when we leave, like I'm originally from Georgetown, but when we leave and we go out and we seek knowledge and we seek resources and we seek things that could help our community, it's always good for us to go back and bring back those resources so that we could be able to help other people. Because what good is it for me to be able to find healing or find whatever it is that I'm searching for and knowing that there's people that I know are in need. So that's my biggest thing, is always serving and giving back to people however I can.
Wonderful, wonderful. And did you find this giving back through the skill of writing? Is this something you personally cultivated, or did you learn how to write in college per se? And I say that because I'm a journalism major and I'm a writer, but I write in many different ways because I went to college to become a better writer. So is this something that you personally cultivated, or do you have a journalism degree? How did that happen?
I don't have a degree in writing. No, I have a degree in business.
Okay.
When I was younger, I spent a lot of time alone. I'm an introvert. I figured that out at some point down the line. But I spent a lot of time alone, and I like to gaze out of the window. I always journaled. And I just like to take notes, and I'm very observant about the things that I see, and I'm very in tune with people. So I don't know, but it's just like it just draws right to me. So I spend a lot of time writing what I see. I write based upon what I hear people are going through, the things that they're feeling. So I use that. People inspired me. So I mean, that's basically how I started. I always stayed in my room, and I was just going through those tough times, and I would always journal and write down the stuff that I was feeling and what I was going through. Or it was always my way of talking to God, even when I was younger, even that I didn't really know, but it was always my way of getting out whatever I was going through.
Very good, very good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm going to say this. I'm also an introvert. Most people don't believe that. But so I can relate to that. Growing up as an
Right.
introvert, I trained myself to be more of an extrovert.
Got it. Yeah.
But I can relate to what you're saying, gazing out the window. I'm a reader. My mother was a librarian, so I read all the time. I'd
Yeah.
just be in the corner by myself reading a book. I just loved reading. And also, I have found that introverts tend to be observers also.
Yes.
We watch what's going on around us. And it informs a lot of what we do. Do you find that to be true today? Did you find that first to be true, that you are an observer? And
Very
if you
true.
are, did it help you write the book?
Very true. I wouldn't say that that part helped me to write the book, but I am a freelance writer for Sheen magazine, and a lot of the articles that I do write, I write it based on I try to be more of the voice, a voice for the people. So it's almost like whatever the people are going through or whatever they're feeling, I always feel like I need to write around that. So I want to be able to give an outlet for people who don't have a voice, but they have something to say, but they don't have those outlets to put it out there. So I always use that as my inspiration, and then I use it for my writing.
Very good, wonderful. That's good to hear that. So let's really start with these questions. We kind of were free flowing there a little bit, but there was one question I did tell you I wanted to ask, and you said you have a major in business. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're a business background. What is your journey that led you to write Another Level? How changing your mindset changes your circumstances?
Well, for me, again, I've always liked to write, and so I like to express myself. But then I went through a period of time, like I journal and I write down everything that I'm going through, and then it was just at one point I found that people were kind of ashamed about their journey. They never spoke about it, like the things that they went through, the hardship. Everyone came off as if everything was perfect in their life. And I'm more transparent and I like to share those hard times, those difficulties, that type of stuff, because I feel like people need to see that they're not the only ones. Although during those times, I felt like I was the only one because everyone around me just seemed like they had the perfect life. And I kept wondering, why does it seem like I have so many problems and everybody else? And then I finally realized that people were covering up their pain and those things that they've gone through because they suffered in silence. They didn't want to talk about that kind of stuff. And at some point in my life, I suffered in silence as well. I was embarrassed to talk about certain things, but then it was just more of, hey, you know what? Let's talk about it, because there are a lot more people out there that's just like me, that's going through things or have experienced those things. And it was just time, what I'm saying, to put it out there and talk about it, because what I went through, my experience, it could be healing for someone else. So that was really the inspiration behind writing the book. It was just like I went through A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, that type stuff. And it's just like I wanted to share that. I wanted to help people to bring forth whatever it is that they were going through and help them to see how they could change those things, because I walked through that same path too. And I wanted to be able to show them that they could as well.
So it sounds as if your journey helped you to develop more empathy for others
That is
and
correct.
to imagine what they may be going through and how you could play a part in being a resource, a help on
Right.
their journey. Do you think that's true?
I think it is true. I feel like although our stories will never be the same, but I feel like we all have a story. We all walk through something. And I felt like I reached a point where, okay, I need to heal. And I found my healing. And I wanted to reach back and make sure that other people were able to find their healing as well. Or at least just give them the resources that I went through. I mean, the resources so that they would be able to find healing for themselves.
Very good. I love that. That's beautiful. And I can really relate to how changing your mindset changes your circumstances. That is the subtitle of the main title, Another Level, because I had to make some conscious choices in my life. And I hinted at that by saying I was born an introvert, but trained myself to be an extrovert. And I say that because there were things that I realized on my journey I wanted to accomplish
Hmm.
in my life. And for me to accomplish those goals, I had to make some internal changes to make that happen. And I had to own and accept those internal changes to make that happen. And
Right.
I have to say, it's interesting you saying everybody has a story. I like to say everybody has a journey. Everybody's on their journey.
Right.
And once you accept your journey, you see it, you accept it, you own it, you would be amazed how you start accomplishing your goals.
Right.
So when I saw this subtitle, I'm like, I get that. I really did. I had to change my mindset. I had to heal some brokenness in myself. And I had to recognize I was on a journey. And the journey is about ebbs and flows and mountaintops and valleys, but it's still a journey. And for a period of time, you're going to be on that mountaintop. And for a period of time, you're going to be in that valley. And if
Yes.
you recognize that the valley too will flatten. The
That's
valley
right.
will rise up, the mountaintops will flatten. So it's your journey. And I think because we suffer trauma as a community, historical trauma, then on top of that, we have personal trauma
Right.
that we sometimes get on the mountaintop and forget. And sometimes we get in the valley and we forget that we're on a journey and this too shall pass.
Right.
So when I was reading your time, I'm like, yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you took the time to write about this. So what is your goal that you hope to accomplish with your book?
Can I, before I answer that one, can I just go back? I
Sure,
wanted to say something. When
sure.
you're just talking about that subtitle, how changing your mindset changes your circumstances. So for me, what I was thinking when I came up with that title was, in the book, there's a lot of stories about my past and the struggles and when I was growing up and then early adulthood. And so we look at those negative things that happen into our lives, the trauma, just like you're stating, and it's just like we carry that stuff, and I don't want to call it like baggage, but we carry that pain and that hurt and everything else that came with from our childhood, and we bring that into adulthood, and we don't heal. And it's just like we fest it harbors, and it's there, and we need to deal with it. And then instead of looking at things as a negative outlook, we have to figure out the positive parts in there, because every story or everything that we go through, God has allowed those things, and He said that He would work those things for our good. So instead of us believing that, okay, this is all these bad things happening in my life, yeah, those bad things happen, but let's see how God turns those bad things and bringing it to something good. So even when I went through the hardship, I still see where God was taking me, and there was so much growth from that point. It made me see and view life in a different way. And so I just feel like sometimes when we shift our mindset, when we start to change or see things differently, our lives start to change and we go into a different direction. So even though we went through those bad phases or those bad stages in our lives, it worked out for our good. Something good is going to come through from. But if we stay in that negative state, we're not going to be able to move forward. Because a lot of times people just think about all the bad things that happen, but they never focus on the good things that happen or came from it.
I'm glad you went back because I want to ask you this question. This is a conversation. So y'all, it's kind of free flow. Y'all know how we do in a gathering place. It's kind of free flow here, but I do have some questions, but we
Okay.
free flow too. Do you find that you give yourself, and in learning your journey and understanding yourself better, do you find, or have you found, that you give yourself grace?
I'm glad you said that. Grace popped up before you even said it. And the answer is no. I did
Okay.
not. I struggled with that, and I'm very goal oriented, high achiever, and I have so much expectation for myself. And so for a very long time, I would beat myself up for the things that I didn't do right, or I just, saying, like those things that just didn't work out the way that I planned it in my own mind. And so that was pretty tough for me, but no, and I'm still working on that area in my life, allowing myself some grace. I have to stop and say, hey, listen, you know what? You're too hard on yourself. You need to give yourself some grace for this situation. So it's something that I'm still trying to work on, but I'm working. That's all I can say. I'm working on it.
Well, I think the acknowledgement that you're working on it
Hmm.
is life itself.
Yes.
Because we are all, because being on earth, we're always seeking that perfection
Right.
in the sight of God. But I don't think we achieve it here on earth.
Mm-mm.
it's not until your journey is over for the final time, you close your eyes for the final time, that it's well done. So I think in that journey, we give, it's something I work on too all the time, because I have to remind myself that we give ourselves grace, allows us to come out of the valley,
Yes.
allows us to understand why we're at the mountaintop. And if we give ourselves, it's I like to tell people, and I've said this, until we see the humanity within ourselves, we cannot see the humanity in others. I think we get caught up in so much of expectations from others that we think we failed. You didn't fail. Maybe it was a lesson learned.
Right.
Maybe, as you said, maybe this is what God intended you to go through, so things can be revealed to you. And so when I say grace, that's what I'm looking, the grace of forgiving ourselves, the grace of recognizing I'm an imperfect being, but I have, every time I open my eyes, I have a new opportunity.
Yes, that's good.
You know, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and this is something that I've learned, and this is something that I try to do whenever I reflect back and on situations, or even if I'm when I go through my healing sessions, because I go through healing sessions, but I always, when I have those areas that I still feel like that still that there's still triggers, or I still have those wounds, I always take a step back. I acknowledge, I identify, and then I give it over to God. Like, I'm not going to stay there. I'm not going to let it just draw me back to a place that I've already tried to move forward from. So I identify the problem. I acknowledge that I acknowledge that it exists. Good Lord. And then I give it over to God, and just, and expect him to heal me from it, because I can't hold on to it, and there's nothing that I can do with it. So yes.
Yes, yes, girl, take it to the Lord and leave it there.
Yes, but it's so hard, and that's something that I
Woo.
talked about in the book, because a lot of times I would put my hands on stuff, then I take my hands off of it, and then I put my hands back on it, and I had to realize that, girl, God don't need you to do anything. Like, I'm trying to get in the way of something that he's trying to bring me through, and I'm hindering myself. So I'm just like, girl, you know what? Take a step back and let God be God, and you
Mhm,
just do whatever it is that God has
mhm,
called you to do. Because a
mhm.
lot of times we try to be God, or we try to do his job for him. And I know I have plenty of times. And yeah, that just doesn't work. It doesn't at all.
I'm glad you said some of those words that you said, because a lot of what we're saying we've heard before. We heard in the church.
Hmm.
I heard it from my mother, my aunts, uncles, father, etc. And um, I think, though, too many times we don't take the time, as you were saying, we need to take the time to really think about the words. I think we say things casually because we heard it,
Right,
but
right.
really don't take the time to to study upon it, to have silence. And one term that, as you were talking, that came to me is when I hear folks saying, let go, let God.
Yes.
And I think we're dangerously trivialized that term and really don't understand the significance of it. I think we understand it in a shallow sense. And I'm not saying this to beat up on anybody at all, but it's become more of a slogan than the significance of what it really means.
Right.
It's easy to say that, but not take the responsibility of letting go and let God. And
Right.
that takes work. That
Yes.
takes some work. And it's conscious work and it's unconscious work, but it does take some work to do that. Um, so you're go ahead. Do you have any
So
thoughts
I'm
regarding
I'm
that?
so glad that you said that we use things as a slogan, because we hear it all the time. And that was another reason. That was another reason, because a lot of times, when you talk to people and they just, write things off as it so casually, like, oh, that's nothing. Or people are so, they have every scripture in the book for you, and it's just like, okay, like, so I'm sitting there thinking, like, am I the only person that goes through this? Every time I have a situation, people, so they have something to say, just have something like a scripture or something like that. And I'm just like, gosh, I know these scriptures, I apply them to my life, and I know how they work. But I think that sometimes people throw scripture at you, but you don't ever see any fruit from their own lives. And that was the whole thing. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and I put this book together and I'm telling people about, saying how good God is, or I'm throwing a scripture at them and saying, oh, this, and this, when I wanted them to be able to see the fruits of what the things that I walked through and the things that God had brought me through, not me just saying, "Oh, God has been so good," and shouting and thank you, God. No, they need to see what that life looked like, that process, because a lot of times people see the journey of my life. They see the hard work, but they don't know what the process looked like. And I share that openly, and I'm very transparent about that, and especially on social media, because I don't want people to think that my life was easy, or that it was just great. And it wasn't. I want to be able to share my journey, because just being coming up from where I came from and not having a whole lot. And I'm not saying that I have a whole lot now, but I'm just saying that God has blessed me with more than what I had when I was growing up. And so I wanted people to be able to see that my environment looked just like your environment. You know what I'm saying? And God ordered my step just like He's going to order your step. And He could bring you through the exact same, well, not the same way that He brought me through, but God has a way that He's planning on bringing you through your situation. So that was, I wanted to be able to show people that. I wanted them to be able to experience, to see it. I wanted them to be able to see the fruit.
Very good. I love that. Before we move on, I'm going to take a quick station break and remind everyone that you are watching A Gathering Place, hosted by the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce. And we have Miss Twanja Windley with us today, author of Another Level, How Changing Your Mindset Changes Your Circumstances. And let me tell y'all, fascinating conversation. We have some comments dropped in there. Yes, Miss Roberta, thank you for joining us again today. And yes, amen. Amen. You're right. Let's go back to Myra. I did put her up twice. It's been said that everything we have in our lives is the sum total of our thoughts. We really do have to watch our thoughts. I agree with you, Myra, because what we think will manifest itself.
Yep.
And I don't say that to be preachy. So let me connect dots. Let me connect dots with y'all. Because Black folks, we are very spiritual.
Right.
We are very spiritual. And this goes back to our ancestors. And it is not necessarily connected to Christianity. Christianity is in there now, don't get me wrong. But if you really listen to the ancestors and understand from whence we come, spirituality is deeply within us as individuals and as a community. I had on here a couple of weeks ago Dr. Samuel Livingston, who's from North Santee in Georgetown. He's a professor at Morehouse College.
Ooh,
and the topic was the Gullah Geechee origins of African American history. And spirituality came up, but it also, you could hear it in our conversation. So you don't have to be in church to be spiritual. You don't
right.
have to be church to listen to the word. Some of my best conversations with God was when I was hiking in the forest, in the woods, when I lived in the upstate of South Carolina,
Wow.
where I could see the changing of the seasons. I could hear the wildlife. I could hear the rustling of the trees in the wind, and hear God. Have that quiet time. You know, they say pray in the closet. I would pray on these walks with myself and the dogs. It would only be me. And I would have these conversations. That's the spirituality, the connection to the
Right.
earth, to the water, to the land, I think that we have. And one of the things we were saying, like the hand clapping and the foot stomping, and I want to be careful, and I say this because I don't want people to say I'm beating up on our religious traditions. As a matter of fact, I'm not. I'm celebrating them. And I think your book, in a way, celebrates them. I think, but the world we live in, it's almost a battle all the time. But I say we celebrate them. When Dr. Livingston was on, and we talked about the hand clapping and the foot stomping and how we sing, and you could go into almost any Black church and immediately relate. That is our spiritual connection to our ancestors, because that is directly a tie to our West African history. If you are from South Carolina, the coastal areas, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, the Gullah Geechee, because you could directly tie that back to West Africa and the tradition.
Wow.
And how we worship, even to this day. So as we talk about our history, our culture, who we are, it ties in. All of this impacts us. Some people may even say it's in our DNA. Not only the joy, the brokenness, the trauma, but the joy is also in our DNA too.
Yes.
And that once again goes back to our journey and having you on is another piece of the journey. Whether you realize it or not, when you were writing this book, my journey led me to you. And that's why it's important for us to recognize and own our journeys. Because once you recognize and own your journey, you would be amazed how many resources come your way,
Right.
how many people come your way to give richness to your journey. And I just wanted to point that out, is that that's why we have these conversations.
I love
As I told you before the show started, this is for change makers within our community to impact our community. We have these conversations, and I want people not only to recognize resources, this book is a resource to us. We need to buy it, open it, and read it, but it's a resource on a spiritual level, and it's a resource on a material level also. I don't want to quite use the word material level, but a skill level, helping us to develop healthy skills
right, right.
to help us grow as people. So I said
That
a
was
lot there, and
so
I'm not the author.
that was so good, because you know what? In another part of this book, I've learned that over 16 million people suffer from depression a year. And I was just like so blown away by that number. And it's so crazy because you said that's why we need to have these conversations. It's exactly right. It's the reason why we need to have dialogue. It's the reason why we need to talk about the things that we're going through so that we could heal. We could all heal together. And a lot of times people are so ashamed of their story, or they don't have anyone to talk to, and so they're silenced and they just keep things bottled up inside, when there's professional help that they could seek. There's someone that they could talk with. The problem is that they're seeking the wrong source. They're going to the wrong people who doesn't want to that doesn't take the time to listen to their story, or don't want to hear that same story again, because they can't give them the proper knowledge or tools, to go into the right direction, or how to handle that type of stuff. But dialogue is important, and also you need to find a safe place and a safe person that you could release that stuff to, and knowing that that person is going to hold it for you, or at least help you to get help. And that's the biggest part. Like that, the book, the biggest push for me was I was battling through a whole lot depression. Like I was working a lot, and I so I had this goal in my mind. Now I wanted to make six figures. That was it. Like that, when since I was a kid, and I talked about it in the book. It was, I wanted to be a CEO of a company. I wanted to get my MBA, and I made it to those things, except for the CEO of the company. But I do have some businesses, so I'm still going in the right direction. So, but it was more of, I kept pushing myself, and everything that came towards me, I kept just taking it. People says, "Oh, you have to have thick skin in this industry," or "Oh, you have to have this." All the racism, all of the stuff that I just kept. Things are just beating me down. You'll never be a manager on this team because you're a black female, and this company doesn't hire black females as this. And it was just like I kept trying to prove myself. And then at some point, I finally just broke. And I remember just coming home at night and sitting in my car garage, because I didn't want to face the people that I had to come home to, because I was just, there was so much going on inside of me. And I remember going to work and sitting in the parking lot and like, I don't want to go in that building. Like, I don't want to go in there. And it was just like, but I had to suck it up, and because I had responsibilities, there were people that I had, that I was responsible for. There were things that I had responsible for. So it was just like, what do you do? And a lot of people go through that stuff. A lot of people, saying, they put their job in their livelihood ahead of before their own personal life. There's no self-love. We neglect ourselves. And then finally I just I hit a wall, like, and then I had all this mess that was there, and I had to clean it up. And I'm just like, God help me. That's where I was. God help me. And so as I was putting back the pieces of the puzzle, the piece of my life back together, it was just more of, okay, I made a promise to God that I would not spend the next half of my life the way that I spent the first half of my life. I'm not chasing anything. There's one thing that I learned from this was with the late Dr. Miles Monroe before he passed away. He said, whatever you chase, you'll have to continue to chase, because it's always going to run from you. And I hear people always talking about, oh, I got to make this money, or money team, and late night stuff like that. And I'm just like, you wanting to say, man, aren't you tired of that life? because I sure am. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. That 50, 60, 70, 80 hour week, and then it's just like, what happened for what? And then when it all falls apart, then it's just like you're left picking up yourself, picking up your life, and then trying to go back and give yourself the love that you deserve from the beginning that you neglected because you were too concerned about everything else. So, I mean, I poured myself into this book. I shared everything, the highs and the lows, because I wanted people to be able to see that.
Very good. That's powerful. That's beautiful. And as you were talking, and you're talking about chasing, and I just read something this week, and I can't remember where I read it, but it was saying, at what point are you going to be satisfied also?
Mm.
If you're
Mm-mm.
constantly chasing that dollar,
Yes.
if you're constantly chasing the car or the clothes, or I'll generalize and say material things,
Right, right,
when are you going to be satisfied? Because it's always going to be that one more car that's better,
right.
or that one more pocketbook that's better, or
You
of the
preaching to me.
season.
You preaching
Yeah,
to me.
yeah, it's like when, and I have found, when you recognize that journey you're on, the other thing that you learn is you will attract like-minded people.
Right, that's true.
You know, you don't have to worry about the naysay. Well, yeah, you do not have to worry about the naysayers or the envious or the jealous, etc., because they'll fall away, and you will attract like-minded people that help you along your journey. Um, but I say you don't have to worry, but you are aware, because we are in the world that we live in. You're aware that there are naysayers, envious, jealous, etc. But you don't lose sleep over them anymore, because you're no
Right.
longer competitive. You're no longer, I got to prove to them that I'm doing this or whatever.
Nope,
So you don't even think about it. You
not at
sleep
all.
better at night. You find joy. You enjoy, and I tell people, Mary, you're doing this, you're doing that. And yeah, as long as I enjoy it, I'm good. And yeah, and every day's different. Some days I'm tired. I mean, I was really tired this past Friday, and a friend of mine made note of it, a colleague. And I was physically tired because I had finished a program Thursday night, and he recognized it. So this weekend I took time for me. I rested,
Yes.
you know. And so in this book, do you make note of those type of things? You talk about your journey and all, but do you say to folks, rest, take time for yourself? We hear about
Yes.
self-care. That's very true.
There's a
Do you
chapter in there about self-love and loving yourself and taking care of yourself. And I'm not just talking about just going to get your nails done and your hair done for a weekend. It says, oh, that's self-love. And it is a part of self-love. So I'm not knocking anybody that says that. But I'm gonna tell you, the same amount of money that you pour into all these other stuff, that you pour into the material stuff, the pocketbooks, the shoes, the vacation, although vacationing is a part of self-love, buying yourself is something nice, is a part of self-love. But what about pouring into your mental health? Seeking somebody for therapy or some type of counselor, or what I'm saying, that type of stuff, because that's self-love too, and that's building. Just like in the book I talk about, weight loss and health. What I'm saying, invest into your health, into your weight loss, because you want to live a healthy life. That's self-love as well too. Like, I had to tell myself that, I beat my body up for X amount of time. Now it's time that I love my body properly, the way it needs to be loved. And that's the things that people need to think about as well when we talk about for self-love. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly what people need to think about, that kind of stuff when we talk about self-love. It's not just, saying, taking a weekend off or doing your nails or getting your nails done or spa day or something like that. Invest into your mind, invest into your body, invest into your soul. Watch what you're pouring into yourself. Read books, always try to advance or to try to get better, take your life to the next level.
Very true. And I'm reading here on page 35. You have principles to live by. There are great timeless principles out there that have changed the lives of many people. Usually, a timeless principle is something that someone discovers in their own life and realizes it can be true for others. And that's true. What you just said, the self-care, your health, taking care of your health. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If you can see the humanity in yourself, you will see the humanity in
And
others.
others. Yep,
And
that's
that
right.
leads to you giving grace to yourself and giving grace to others. Because you may not know what other people are going through in detail.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, most of the time you don't need to know because it's quite frankly none of your business.
I was just going to say that.
But you can recognize that they're going through something. You can, because we all have our moments.
Right.
And that should lead to understanding and sympathy and empathy and grace towards that. And I'm just, this book is just okay. So it's not only the book, but I love the fact that you did a journal. So setting goals for the future. Tell me about why you did the journal setting goals for the future.
So I'm gonna tell you, okay, of course, I mentioned that I do love to journal, but I'm also very big on vision boards. The Bible says, write the vision and make it plain. So every year I create a new vision board and I just have all these dreams and goals or whatever, anything that I want to ask God about. I write it on the vision board. But when I was in college, one of my college professors, my freshman year, says, write down the things that you want to accomplish. She said, like for the beginning of the semester, for the whole year, next 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. And she's like, write down anything. She said to me, she knew that I love new sneakers. She said, if you want a pair of new Jordans, write that down in there as well, too. And she was like, then I want you to go back at the end of the semester. And then I want you to go back and look and see the things that God has done in your life, even for my grades in school. And so I would always write down everything that I wanted to accomplish or whatever I wanted to give or sow, give to people, all that stuff. Anything that I wanted to ask God is going on in my journal or it's on my vision board. And so I created this thing, write the vision. And so it's write the vision and make it plain. Pretty much the same thing as the same way the Bible says, write the vision. I want you to write the vision. I want you to write down, take notes from the book, even. And I'm going to tell you, this is my personal copy of the book. And you can see in here, you'll see highlights, you'll see notes on the side, because that's what I do. I go back, I read, and I write things down, because even though I wrote this book, that every time I pick it up and I start reading, there's new revelations that I receive from God. And so I make those notes on the side. And I just feel like anything that's poured into my spirit, I need to write that down. Because, and then the thing is that, and people get this word kind of mixed up or whatever. God would give us the desires of our heart. And a lot of times people feel like if we write this down, we ask God, He's going to give it to us. No, that word means that God will give us the desire. He would place those desires into us. We'd pray to Him, and then He would give those desires. Those desires are the ones that comes from Him. So if God is giving you that word, write it down. That is it. Just write it down. The desires, those visions, those things that God made, put it place into you, because that's the stuff that He want to manifest through you. So that's my biggest part. That's why I created a journal. I love to journal. I love to write things down. And even so, like, I find myself, if I'm not at a place where I don't have my journal or something, I either send an email to myself, I send an email to God, I send a text message to myself, I send a text message to God. That's just how it is. I got to get it down on paper somehow. So that's me. I'm very big on writing. I mean, very big on writing. I don't even know where, I know where the gift came from God. So that's where it came from.
Yeah, and that's how it happens too. And you have to take the time to listen and have quiet. Just listen. Yeah, it's so interesting as you speak, and I just hear my mother, and I'm not.
Wow. Wow.
I think all of our mothers were wise.
Yes,
And maybe when we were younger, we didn't appreciate that as
that's
much.
right. Hmm.
But as we got older, I
Yes.
have gained greater appreciation for her. And I don't know, do you think our mothers are like, I'm pouring this wisdom into them, or were they just being mothers?
I think that you know what? Okay, so sometimes I always tell myself, if you're not careful, you could miss God, like the things that He does in your life. And I feel like in those moments when our parents are telling us things, that when they're giving us that wisdom, we kind of miss it because it goes over our head. In this book, my dad used to tell me, like, for all of the hard work that I've done, that I would be rewarded. So he would ask me to babysit my younger sister and brothers. This is when I was young and growing up. And he would always say, you'll be rewarded. So at the end of the week, I expected my pay. Like, where's my money? Then, okay, this is the child, just came to a point where I said, oh, he's always lying. He's just tricking me, manipulating me to do things and know that he's not going to make good on his promise. But what I didn't realize is that when I grew older, I realized that it was a little bit different. This is how my mindset shifted, that God was the reward of all things, and everything that I did that was good, that was seeds that I was sowing, and that I was going to reap a harvest later. When I was young, I didn't see that. But when I got older and I looked back, reflected back on it as I was telling my childhood story about those things that my dad, and I was just like, hold on a second. My dad was instilling something in me that I didn't even know, because all I could see was the right now, and he was showing me something that was for the future.
That's right. That's right. And I think we don't see it when we're younger.
No.
But
Like I said, we'll miss God if we're not carefully paying attention.
the growth, and that's growth that we have. I think it's there. The seeds are always there. It's what you nurture. There's a Native American expression that speaks to, there's two wolves inside of us. One is the angry bad wolf. One is the good wolf. And which one will you decide to follow?
Wow.
And so there's growth, and that just speaks to growth and choice.
Yes.
Free will, choice. And
Yes.
all this stuff that's being fed into us by your father, our mothers, fathers, mothers. At some point, we have a choice. And that's another thing people like to throw out lightly. Free will. We all have free will, but do you really understand what that means?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can make a choice. As you say, you made a choice, whether it was consciously or not. You made a choice, and that opened your eyes to the word that was given to you, and that allowed you to grow and see the seeds that were planted and nurtured. That's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
It
I
really
agree.
is. It's a wonderful thing. Let me go to a quick station break. We're talking. Time is flying. It is 4:43, folks. And we want to remind you that you are watching A Gathering Place, brought to you by the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce, hosted by me, Marilyn Hemingway. And we have a wonderful author here with us today. And the book is Another Level: How Changing Your Mindset Changes Your Circumstances. Twanja Windley, right there, a beautiful cover there. And she also has a journal, The Vision Setting Goals for the Future. Love that. So let me read another one. Part 3, the changing of seasons. People change just like seasons. Change allows you to focus your energy on your future and to find a new direction for your dreams. And I think I've been hearing that in our conversation today when you were saying you were in the parking lot and the questioning you were going through. So you wrote this. What were you thinking when you wrote this?
The seasons change. Our lives will never stay the same, because when the season is never going to change, stay the same. God promised us that season is going to change. So when we're in situations, and even though it's hard and it looks like we're not getting no way, the season is going to shift, because that's the part of the promise. We know that the season is going to change, just like the 4 seasons here that we go through: spring, summer, fall, winter. We know that the seasons are going to change. So those seasons that we're going through in life, they have to change. Now it's up to you for when you want your season to change, because a lot of times people stay stuck in the season because they don't want to move forward. But it's up to the individual for their seasons to change.
That's very true. That's very true. And I recommend folks go for a walk. So much we're in our house, especially in the time of COVID with social distancing, we're in our house. I went for a walk today. If you can, try to go on a walk at least once a day. And I challenge everyone to do that also. Of course, I challenge you to read this book, purchase it and read it, but go for a walk. And I'll tell you why. When I really was into hiking and going into the
I loved hiking.
trails and stuff, I love hiking. And you could see you're forced to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then you recognize the flowers, the plants, the wildlife that you overlook because we all get so busy in our day. But to go even on a walk in your neighborhood, pay attention to the flower. Today, my neighbor and I were walking, and she noticed the daffodils. I had noticed them 2, 3 days ago in my yard. She's, oh, your daffodils are out. The changing of the season, and they're such sunny, happy flowers. It's a sign of renewal, spring, you know.
Yes.
But even in the winter, if you pay attention, winter is sleep, dormant. They're preparing for the spring. You have to sleep to rest, to gather strength and heal and repair. And then you start awakening is the spring. And the summer is you're in full bloom. And then the fall prepares you for the deeper sleep. And if you go out on a walk, and it's really important that you really pay attention and listen and open your eyes to really see the changing of the seasons and have that understanding. When I really hiked, and I can appreciate you enjoying hiking, that's when it really hit me. I had to remove myself from my regular day of busyness
Mm-hmm.
and take that hike. And it really just really opened me up to it. So I'm happy that you enjoy hiking too, because I think it comes probably from that understanding. It's
I'm gonna tell
physical
you.
exercise,
Yeah,
getting healthy physically, but it's also a spiritual, mental
it is.
exercise,
It is.
getting healthy. And I'm going to just say for Black folks, because I'm Black, y'all, we need to get out in the woods more. I know for historical reasons, it's hard, but they're not there. Groups out there, outdoor Afro, they're Black conservationists of color, growing groups that just getting out and walking in your neighborhood will make a world of difference. So tell me more about the book, where we've got a little over 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
What do you want us to know?
You know what? Can I just go back a second? You're talking about hiking. Can
Yes.
I just add something in there right quick? So listen, when you're talking about getting out there and enjoying nature, listen, enjoy those little things of God, and you'll start to see big things. When I went hiking, I was out with a friend one time, and I heard this noise. It sounded like a dinosaur, right? This is crazy. And so it was two trees trunk, they were rubbing against each other. And so paused and I said, wait a minute, is that what the word meant when God says, don't let the rock cry out to me? Because everything that has breath, praise God, right? That's what the word says, right? So when you hear those tree trunks, that was their praise back to God. Someone taught me this, they said when a flower blossoms, that bloom is a praise back to God. When we hear the tree shaking, during the storm, that's nature praising God. When we breathe, inhale, we're breathing Yah. When we exhale, we breathing way. So it's giving it right back to God. There's so many little things that we miss, but it's scripture, and we can go back and recognize and see the glory of God in these things that He's given us. The bird chirping, the singing of the bird, they're giving that praise back the same that way that we do every day by breathing, inhaling and exhaling. We're saying Yahweh. So I just had to throw that back into. I know I kind of get a little spiritual a little bit, but
Well,
when you
that's
said
okay.
that, enjoy the things that God has given us. I think that sometimes people kind of just miss it. But I mean, our lives are really great in spite of the circumstances that hit us every single day.
That's very true. That's very true. And I'm glad you said that. And it really is becoming, it's a certain awareness. And that's why you're right. Go on a hike, go on a walk, and just take time. And it's not going to happen the first walk. If you're not
Right.
used to walking or you don't do this on a regular basis. My late mother, when I had a dog and I was traveling back and forth to Georgetown and work. And so my dog was here and she would walk my dog. When I was home, I would walk with them also. And my mother had a habit of crossing her hands behind her back, and she'd kind of just lean down, walking, the leash, the dog, and doing her thing. And I was like, Mom, what are you doing? She said, I'm talking with God.
Yes.
And she was praying. I think
Hmm.
we get this thing about prayer has to be this thing, but when you take a breath out and a breath in, you're praying.
Yes.
Praise, prayer, you know. when you recognize the flower or the bird singing, that's prayer. You're
Mhm.
communicating, you're recognizing that's a gift that God has given us. The birds and the trees, and these
Yes.
are, and it's biblical, it's right there in the Bible.
Scripture.
But you gotta take the time and recognize it. It's right there in front of us. You
Right.
know, that's why I tell people go for a walk. It would change. My day was so much better taking that walk. And y'all, I have to confess, I have not been walking like I was. I've been out of practice, so I was a
Oh
little. But
no.
once I got moving, it was like, whoa, my body warmed up, and I've been in a good mood all day because
That's good.
you
Yes.
know.
It
The
changes your
hormones,
mood. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I've
Get
been
it,
in a
Miss
good
Marilyn.
mood all day. But it's the same
That's
with
funny.
good books like this. When we read about what you wrote, and you're in here, and these chapter titles are just beautiful, by the way. I love them. God steer the wheel. Only God can validate me. Self-love. Finding love within. How to see beyond your current situation.
Yes.
You know, and give yourself grace. I love this. Who are you blessing?
It's not
Prepare for
always
the
about you.
breakthrough.
It's not about you
Mm-hmm,
at all.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Learn from the things we face. That's right. You know, um, you are a resource for folks, and we all are, because we all bring different skills and gifts to the table,
Yes.
and or to the room. One thing I like to say, when I started the chamber, I said I'm building a table. I don't want a seat at the table. I'm building a whole new table,
That's
but the
right.
house was big enough for many tables.
Yes. Thank you, God.
And we got room for your table too. So y'all out
Oh.
there, bring your table into the house, and this is just another table in the house, and I encourage y'all, all the entire show at the bottom of the screen, we've been scrolling, purchase Another Level at twindlepublications.com. So, and I also put it in the comments so you guys can see it in the comments with the full title. But wonderful, wonderful book. I really am appreciative that you took the time to write it, to share your journey with us, and to just express to others your journey and how that mindset can change your circumstances if you change your mindset. And also the fact that you talked about your depression, because I too suffer from depression and had to seek help and
Yes.
therapy and everything. And yeah, so it's not, we are not here to judge. We're here to be a resource. We're
Right.
here to share our journeys. And you took it to another level and wrote the book. I didn't write a book, but hey, I have a show. Thank you. There you
That's
go.
right.
Right? I can say
There
I
we
have
go.
a show. So what else do we need to know about your book? We know where to purchase it. Everybody go to twindlepublications.com, purchase Another Level, and the full title is in the comments. Another Level, how changing your mindset changes your circumstances. But what else do we need to know, or
I
you
think
want us to know?
I think that this book, again, it's going to be a good resource. It's a book of healing. I share my personal experience, my journey, the things that I suffered through, and I also shared some very low moments. And I also shared, those times when I didn't know how to love myself, and I had to seek God and God's love, and had to learn how to love myself the way that God loved me. And I really do feel like this book will bless people. I really do feel like it'll help them to take their knowledge or their wisdom or whatever they're going to another level. I think it'll help them to renew their mindset or look at themselves from a different perspective.
So let me say this. I want you to come back.
Oh, don't worry, I want to come back.
And we're going to do an even deeper dive in the book and everything. I'll send you some more dates. The door is always open. You reach out to me and we'll make it happen. I love bringing local authors on because we need to celebrate our local authors. Those voices need to be heard also. So I'm inviting you to come back, and I'm glad you brought you on. I mean, just wonderful conversation. This has been truly a wonderful conversation
It's been a
today.
blessing.
Yeah,
Definitely a
thank
blessing.
you. Yes, it has been. Thank you. And so the door is always open. I'll send you dates, and I have dates through June already out there because I've had some other folks um I need to go through June. So I'll send you that list, but I want you to come back on. And folks, I'm going to issue another challenge, and even to myself, use a journal or create your own journal. As I was listening to you talk about this journal on my side, my business side, because I own businesses also.
Okay.
My plan for the businesses, I have a spreadsheet with the timeline. And that's where my journey is right now for me. And I enjoy it so. But we all have our own journeys.
Yes.
And I encourage people, you are correct. Write it down, whether it's in a journal or it's on a spreadsheet or whatever form. Write it down, because when you write it down, it makes it more permanent.
Yes.
Then you can really, it's one thing to have a vision, it's another to have the plan. Then you can see it, and it's more open to manifest itself. It's the same thing as earlier, I believe Myra posted, your thoughts will manifest themselves, and you be careful about your thoughts. Yes, that's true. Write them down. And I have actually written bad thoughts down on paper and burned them. Yeah, that has helped me too.
That's good.
To get them out of my head, out of my spirit, I had little pieces of paper I've written down. I can't even remember what they were. And I wasn't even living in South Carolina at the time. And I just had to take the burn. It was so heavy on me.
Wow. That
I wrote the words down, put them in a metal bowl, and just lit them up and let them go away. And not to say that what you wrote this book, and what I just said, what you wrote this book for, it's not about ending all your problems. Because as long as we're taking breath on this earth, life happens.
But you had a funeral for those bad thoughts. You got rid of them.
That's right.
You buried
it. That's right. And it's about, you wrote this book. You gifted us with this book to help us. This is another way for us to deal with what we need to deal with. The good and the ugly, the good and the bad. The beautiful and the ugly. And that's the gift that you've given us. So thank you for coming today. Wonderful.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So everyone at the bottom, purchase Another Level at Twindle Publications. Support our local authors. They have so much to give us, so many gifts to give us. And I want to thank you again, Twanja, for Windley, for joining us. And you're going to come on back. I'll send you some dates and we'll have you come on back. All right?
Absolutely.
All right. Very good. Thank you. And we'll see you again. Have a beautiful evening. Enjoy the rest of the day.
I will. You too. Thank you.
Right. Good night. Well, everyone, thank you. What a wonderful conversation this evening. Miss Twanja Windley joined us in her book, Another Level. How changing your mindset changes your circumstances. Definitely enjoyed having her here. I want to remind everyone that you can purchase Another Level at twindlepublications.com. And also to remind you that A Gathering Place is every Wednesday and Sunday at 4 p.m. And coming up, we have another author coming up this week. Miss Hetty J. Simmons will be joining us. Just Be You, I believe, is the book, and the graphics out there. The ad is out there, so you can see that. And we're looking for just wonderful authors from Georgetown, from this area, sharing with us their journeys, sharing with us just great resources to help us on our journeys. All right. Thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you Wednesday at 4. Good night.